Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Luke the Gathering, and I just got back from a Strixhaven booster draft. Tons of fun. It was actually my best result ever. I didn't go undefeated, but I did go 2-1, which is better than I've ever done before in a draft, live and in person, so I was really happy about that to get a couple of wins, some decisive wins, and the one player that I lost to, and these are all best 2 out of 3s, was pretty good, and his deck was really, it had all the answers for my deck, and I think it was a really tough matchup for me, but that's okay. You live and learn, and I thought I played all 3 matchups well, and I thought I did the best that I could, so I'm not complaining about it. I think it was really good. I was satisfied with it, and I was really happy with the final results. So, I think this draft had, how many people? I think it had like 15, but we were in pods of 8, 7 and 8 or something like that, and so I was in a group of 8, for sure. So maybe there were 15 or 16, but a good group of people on a Friday night for Friday Night Magic. That worked out really nicely. Of course, in Davis Cards and Games, Davis, California, and so really just a nice group of players that are there, and I saw people I'd never seen before, and then of course I've seen some of the regulars, but we had a great time drafting Strixhaven. So I actually went green and black. Typically, oftentimes I'll go red and white just because I'm a noob, and that's very aggro in terms of the way you play, but I've been upping my game a little bit in terms of drafting and picking colors and playing Magic, and so this time I was in green and black, which in Strixhaven is Wither Bloom. And I think my thought process in terms of going into this draft was, picking the best cards, and I kind of realized you can get all the medium decent cards you can, but if you can pick up some game-winning cards, like some really good rares, really just build off of those, I guess, you have to do that, because I would say the cards that won me the games were the big cards, the rares, the cards that no one else would have in their deck, because in one of my matches, my final match, we were both Witherbloom. We were both green and black. Except I had the advantage of having better, more quality pieces. The other person had a ton of life gain, but they were all just these little pests that, 1/1 pests all over the place. And he had a lot of cards that got him life, but couldn't really get through my guys. And then once I played a certain card, which I'm going to show you, it was all done. And, you couldn't come back from that. So try to draft that one card. That's something I got to keep in mind. Find that amazing card and really use it, because what I guess kind of what I do now is I try to find cards that are unexpected that can really turn a game. Last week I used Mascot Interception, which is a card I think a lot of people don't use. No one really likes that card, at least when I draft on Arena and even in person. People don't take that card, but oh, and it showed up on a top 10 worst Strixhaven cards list too. But you know what? It can win you the game, because you can steal a character from them, and it's not limited to a certain amount of mana value. It's just you take whatever, and you can just take it. You can take a dragon, you can take a huge token, you can take anything, and they're fighting for you that turn. So pretty cool. I think it's a really underrated card, Mascot Interception. But today, we had some really nice cards to use, and so let's just take a look at them and talk a little bit about the cards I chose. Okay, so we're just going to slowly go through these cards, and I'm going to start with the cards that, they were just okay. They did their job, but they're nothing, too crazy. I don't think I put in anything that was just, not necessary in the deck. In fact, making cuts is the hardest thing. But here we go. Here's Crushing Disappointment. It's a card that lets you draw 2 cards, although you lose 2 life, but so does the other player. So it definitely skews more towards you. It gives you a little bit of card advantage, and I did not have a lot of cards that, black and green I don't think are are colors that really get you a lot of cards. So anytime I could get a couple cards in my hand, I was doing that. And so Crushing Disappointment, I would risk the 2 life in order to draw the cards. And, green especially has a lot of cards that can kind of get you that life back. So it's not a cost that I'm unwilling to pay. Although there was a time I used it when I think I only had 8 life left, went down to 6, and I think I won that game. But sometimes you just got to make those, calculated risks to do what you can. But drawing cards in Magic is such a key thing. It's hard to do. It's not like the easiest thing to do. Oftentimes you find yourself with like very few cards left in your hand, or none. And that feels really bad when you don't have anything there. So a card like Crushing Disappointment is really nice to get you a couple of cards. Field Trip I included. That's just going to help you get your forests. I used it a couple times. It's also nice because you can learn. I only had 1 learn card, so it didn't do me a whole lot of good. But Field Trip was a card that I thought I needed in order to really get those green lands out. I have cards in here that take advantage of having more and more lands, and so I thought Field Trip might be really important. It was mildly important, but it wasn't game-breaking, that's for sure. But it's a card I would take again. Big Play is just a really nice instant. It gives your creatures +2/+2, and you get to put a +1/+1 counter. This was a nice card to have in the deck. A really strong, helps me win some battles, helps keep guys alive, and also helps give more damage. So this was definitely a must-have. I think my biggest decision was whether to put 1 or 2 of these into the deck. The Professor of Zoomancy is just a really, really good creature in green. Costs 4, but it's a 4/3 and creates a pest token. So I think he's one of the best you can draft. If you see Professor of Zoomancy, he's going to be one of the top cards you might want to be picking when you do a draft. I mean, when I see this guy, I'm always considering getting this guy, even above some other, great cards. Maybe you see some removal or some other things there. I don't know. Professor Zoomancy is just a really strong card, and when I have to face one of these, I'm always trying to figure out how do I get past his, 4, power and 3 defense. How do you do that? He's a pretty tough guy to have to deal with sometimes. The Springmane Servant is nice. 3/2, and you get 2 life. Didn't do a whole lot, but was a nice blocker for me, and occasionally took out some of the pesky creatures I had to face, because 3/2 is better than 2/2, and so he can take out all those guys with toughness of 3. Blood Researcher I thought would do a little bit better for me, but I didn't have tons of life gain, and when you gain life, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on the Blood Researcher. So she was really just a 3 for 2/2, not a 2 for 2. A 2/2 for 2, I should say. It's a 2/2 for 3. And a menace. I thought she could be better, but not the best. Yeah, just not the best. Who was greater was the Leech Fanatic. Leech Fanatic got me a lot of life. I ended up pulling 2 of them. I don't know why there's only 1. Oh, here's the other one. So 2 Leech Fanatics. 2/2 for 2 and life link was definitely great, and just a nice piece to have out on the battlefield, either attacking when there wasn't any blockers or taking some damage if necessary. Spectre of the Ferns was really nice as well. One of my few flyers in this deck. Spectre of the Ferns was great, also with the 5 and a black to lose 2 life and gain 2 life. That's a really nice little bonus that this guy has, so I really liked having Spectre of the Ferns out. Here's another Blood Researcher, had him already. Campus Guide, we got a couple Campus Guides. Very important card. Gives you someone who can, be fodder out there on the battlefield. Do 2 damage for all those, 2/2s for 2. But also gets you the land you need on top of your deck. Really important. If I was stuck with, since I'm in black-green, if I only had black, I needed to get green. If I had all green, I needed to get black. And that did happen where I would, was missing a color that I really needed a mana source. Campus Guide was really clutch in getting the things I need, especially if I got them early on. Charge Through. Charge Through is great. My idea with this deck was to have those bigger creatures because that was kind of my win condition. Get some big creatures and get through, and don't let them get chump blocked by some little mini guy, Use charge through to get through. And the other bonus is it gets you a card, and it's only costing you 1 green. So I really loved charge through. I thought it did a nice job for me. Lash of Malice. I put 2 of these in the deck. This just gets rid of all those pesky little guys that are out there. And especially things like Needlethorn Drake, which are so annoying. Like, you don't want to attack them because they have Death Touch. Lash of Malice just gets rid of stuff like that really nicely. And I was able to get 2 Lash of Malices. And in a pinch, the nice thing is you can actually use it on yourself if you know that your creature won't die to it and, gets a +2 in the attack. I never did that. This was always lashing to kill off my opponent, and it did its job very, very nicely. Mage Duel, great removal for green. I used this card a couple times just to get rid of some of those creatures I didn't want to have to deal with. The really nice thing is, you can actually have it cost less if you've already done an instant. I didn't really have a chance to cast it for the cheaper cost, but it was good enough for what it did. And the creature you gets +1/+2. And so that always is great because, you can kind of get a little bit more defense. You can save your creature in this duel. Another superstar was Flunk. Flunk was so great. I took out so many creatures with Flunk. You get -X, where X is 7 minus the number of cards in the creature controller's hand. And so I was always peeking over looking like, hey, how many cards do you have? And asking them that. And if they had, just like 1 card left, it's 7 minus 6. You can take out a 6/6 real nice with this card. So Flunk was great, only cost 2. The Biblioplex Assistant, really cool creature here. Cost 4, but it's flying, 2/1. And when it gets onto the battlefield, you can pick up 1 target instant or sorcery card from the graveyard and put it on top of the library. I kept putting like Lash on that top of my library. I think to my opponent's chagrin, that sucked for them. But getting those instant cards back that I needed, this was the man. And for a cost of 4 and flying, I think it's definitely worth it. This card did a nice job for me. Tenured Inkcaster was also one of the better creatures that I had, just because it does give that 1/1 counter. And it kind of does a thing where you can make the opponent lose a life, and you gain a life if you attack with the creature that has that 1/1 counter on it. So, did better than I thought it would, actually. So this card did really well. These 2 cards I drafted for sure. This is why I wanted lands. That's why I had the Campus Guide and the Field Trip, because Leyline Invocation gets you a fractal creature with a bunch of +1/+1 counters, however many lands you have. So if you have like 6 lands, which this costs 6 mana, you have a 6/6 on the field. And the more mana sources you have, the more creatures, or the larger this creature is going to be. And so these typically were like 6/6s or even 7/7s. But these were hard to deal with, and I had 2 of these. And I felt bad, I guess, for the guy drafting next to me, because we both were getting green, and he was saying like, oh, what happened to all the green? And I was drafting all the best green cards, and I played this guy during one of the rounds, and he was saying he was missing some pop in his deck to really have those crushing blows. And I think this is a card that he would have really he would have done a whole lot better had he had these cards and had I not taken them. This guy was awesome to pull, the Wandering Archaic. This puts a tax on the opponent's spells unless they pay 2. I get a copy of that. That is ridiculous. And a 4/4. So Wandering Archaic was a tough body, killed a lot of little creatures, and made my opponents really think about the mana that they had to use on their turns, because otherwise they'd have to pay this tax and I would get to use the spells. So people were really careful around the Wandering Archaic. This guy kept on getting buried in books, and people were trying to get rid of him. But such a nuisance on the battlefield. This guy was amazing today. And lastly, the Master Symmetrist. A lot of times the Wandering Archaic is like the guy that everyone's just gunning for. So Master Symmetrist, I think, would have been that role too, but because people were going after the Archaic, the Symmetrist here, didn't get as much, and I love the picture there, by the way, didn't get as much action, and he provided trample for a lot of my creatures. And this was actually great for those fractal creatures, right? Because those fractal creatures are like 6/6 or 7/7. And with Master Symmetrist out there, they all get trample. So this guy was really nice. And he's a 4/4, so he's got a pretty strong body. And lastly, this was my game ender for a couple games. Exponential Growth, really great. It says until the end of turn, double target creature's power X times. I would always double it twice. So, like, say it was a 4/4, like our friend the Archaic or the Master Symmetrist. What would happen is you double it twice. So 4 doubled is 8. So that's once. Double it again. You would get 16. So he was a 16/16 coming at you with trample. And that just ended a couple of games. That was awesome. And that could also happen with Leyline Invocation. Any of your big creatures could take advantage of Exponential Growth. And it was just, it just turned out to be a card that wrecked folks who I was playing. And so, what an amazing... So, one of the games, the guy had 16 life. And, they thought they were sort of in the clear. I was like at 9. Boom. Exponential Growth. He actually swung with all. Didn't think I would have anything so large that would take him out. And Exponential Growth, in your face kind of a thing. And just took him out. And these are the surprises that, turn games. I think it's really good to have a strong base where you have a lot of good 2/2s and things that can defend. But you need those bombs, those heavy hitters to just come in and scare your opponent and win you the game. And that's what I hopefully am learning. And hopefully I'll put those more into practice and draft the right way. Because if I can do that, I'm going to win a whole lot more. At least that's the theory. Let's just quickly go over some of the other cards from the sideboard. I actually took this... Unfortunately, there were 2 Strixhaven Stadiums out. I actually really want to try to get a win in person with the Strixhaven Stadium. I think it'd be hilarious to get a win with this card. It was in the main deck for one game, and I said, it's just not worth it. It's useless, especially in my deck where it's kind of like bigger creatures. I think if I was playing Lorehold, which was, red and white, then this might have a much better chance of getting played. Now, there were 2 of these floating around the draft table. No one picked it up until I decided I'll do one of them. Pest Summoning was the only lesson card I had in the entire deck. I thought I had drafted other stuff, but nope. Pest Summoning is the only one. Didn't really come into play much. Professor's Warning is a great card. This was actually in the deck, but I took it out for Lash, and I think that was a good choice on my part. Fortifying Drought's cheap buff, but it doesn't do a whole lot because the gives you 2 life and only gives you more power until the end of turn. So I just don't think this is just like one of those really quick one and dones, and you don't have anything going on with it. Here's the other field trip. Team Pennant, I was really considering putting in because it makes your creature have vigilance, trample, and gives them +1/+1. But some of those things were redundant with some of the other cards I had in the set. Of course, having +1/+1 would be great, but I think not necessary. Hey, look, a foil rare, Semester's End. Nobody got this card. I don't think white was a very popular color today. So this was actually, I think, the last card passed to me. And it's a rare foil. I wasn't playing blue or green or red, so these were just, nothing. Excavated Wall, no. Defiant Strikes. Spined Carrick, 3 mana for 2/4. This is one of just those ho-hum middlers that maybe you just kind of throw in your deck if you need some extra bodies. I ended up with 2 of them. I didn't use either one. Hunt for Specimens. You would think Witherbloom is going to do that. Pests and things like that. But I ended up not going that way. I kind of went with just like big stompy things rather than little stompy things, and I'm glad I did. I drafted 2 Hunt for Specimens, didn't use either. The cram session, you get 4 life, and then you get a learn. I think the learn part's the best part of this card. But once I saw that I only had 1 spell to learn, I didn't put this card in. Big Play, only had 1 in the deck, had 1 extra. Fuming Effigies is one of those cards that come to you, and these last cards, these are just tokens here, but these last cards, you just kind of get the last bits at the very end, and you just kind of have to take them. All right. Oop. So for my efforts, there wasn't tons of prizes, but I did get a couple packs as sort of a prize for winning 2 rounds, and I pulled a card I thought was pretty good. So let's take a look at the packs. I did get this Elemental Expressionist, which I saw in play during the tournament. Didn't do a whole lot. I don't think it's a great card for limited, at least. I don't think so. You might think it is. We got a couple of the Mystical Archives, Adventurous Impulse. Now these weren't cards I could put into my deck. These are I got 2 packs as prizes. 1 pack per round win. Faithless Looting is a rare Mystical Archive, and then I got this. This was really cool. Kasmina Enigma Sage was in one of the packs. A mythic legendary planeswalker. So I thought that was cool. And you can create a green and blue fractal creature with Kasmina, which is pretty darn awesome. So and then they have their ultimate as well. So kind of a cool little prize in the packs. Let me know what you thought of my draft. Hopefully I did a decent job. That's what I always hope to do. I can't wait for the next one. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, listening to me talk about these cards, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.